Hello and welcome everyone to a new episode of What's This Wednesday here on the channel, and today, I know it's been a while, but today we've got a brand new game that I was actually reached out to try. The wonderful people over at ProGamix, you can find them over at twitter.com/ProGamix, or PGAMIX, I'll put that on the screen for you. They actually reached out and asked if I would like to play the game, and so they asked if I would like a key, and I said, you know what, why not? I'm all about giving, you know, new indie titles and whatnot a little spot on the channel on the What's This Wednesdays, so I said, you know what, yeah, I'd actually love to. I will give them a chance at the What's This, and I'll do my little review, my little mini reviews that I do on Wednesdays. And today, I'm just going to let you know that this was a free product. They did provide a key to me for free. However, there is no necessarily obligation for me to say anything I don't want to say. This is completely of my own accord. It was just my way of getting a little bit more of the indie scene onto the channel, because you know me, I love my AAA games and such, but I also love giving a shine of the light onto the little guys as well. It's just a wonderful little thing. So Orbox C is, it's classified as a puzzle logic game, but the best way I can describe it is that it's the ice puzzles from the Pokemon games. You've all played the ice puzzles from the Pokemon games, where you have to slide around to get to the little gaps, you know, and you can only go in one direction until you hit a barrier, then you have to choose whatever available directions are from there. So that's pretty much what this game is, and at first you might be thinking, well, that's it, that's, you know, a little bit dull, don't you think? But they do a lot to kind of spice up the genre of the logic puzzles genre here. They've got many different levels that have interesting and unique mechanics. They even have some that are a little similar, but not quite. And they even have like time trial modes. It's not really necessarily a time trial mode, but there is a speed mode that I'll show you near the end of the video. So today we're just going to start off with the easy. You know, show you off a little bit of the easy levels, the introductory ones, to show you how the game works. So this is a completely one-handed game. You don't even need to use the mouse at all. You can actually just use the keyboard with W, A, S, and D, and R to restart, and space to proceed. You are the black box, and to win, you need to reach the red exit for at least these few levels. And you have this nice wide open kind of space background, this nice music playing, so it's a very chill atmosphere when you start the game. You also get your things like your level score, your level high score, your level time, and your level steps, so if you ever want to go back and improve to get a high score, or maybe challenge a friend to beat your score, you can do that. And as you can see, I'm already starting to get the hang of it here, down, left, right, do all that kind of stuff. And learning that you get, the faster you go, the less steps you use, the more points you'll get, and the more points you'll get over the entire campaign of the easy levels, like the easy level batch, you'll actually have a high score for a total at the end. So there's another aspect of going for that high score. High scores necessarily don't matter to me. It's all about completing the level. So now we actually have angles being brought into the game. When you hit an angle, you'll go 90 degrees, it'll kind of bump you away. You'll see how cool that looks here in a second. It just kind of really quickly, you kind of boost around, you know, hitting each one, because they'll propel you once you hit them, which is kind of cool. So they're not just angles, but they're also bumpers. Right, and I think that adds a little bit of extra depth, because, I mean, sometimes you'll get angles like that in games where you'll stop and you'll only be able to go, like, directly off of the angle. And as you can see, once you hit an angle, you are committed to, you know, going through that path until you complete it. And unfortunately, the one path was into oblivion, and that was it. And these first few levels will all be about getting used to how the block moves, right? If you've been playing, like I said, I'm going to bring up the Pokemon games again. If you've been playing the Pokemon games for a long time, you will definitely understand how to get through these quite quickly, and the first few levels will go by super quick, super easy, super fun. And then I was actually taken aback when they threw in teleporters here. And not for a negative reason either, but because in 7 levels, they've introduced 3 or 4 brand new mechanics. And I feel like with smaller indie games, puzzle games like this, they definitely don't filter in a lot of new mechanics quickly enough to keep people interested. Because I've played some of these smaller titles that have, like, even on, like, you know, Flashtune websites where you could play these kinds of games, you'd go through like 20 levels before they'd introduce like a harder mechanic, and it's like, why? I really need these brand new mechanics to keep me thinking, to keep me invested and interested. And the fact that they added in portals right at level 7, right? Angles at like level 4, so you'll only ever have to get a few levels in for a new mechanic to come, at least for the first easy pack, because the easy pack is definitely your tutorial stage kind of deal, right? it's getting you used to how all of these different things will interact with each other and how they will all combine to be able to finish the puzzle. Like right there, I used the portals in conjunction with the angles, and there you go. We also have stars now. You've discovered a new mission, collect all the stars. So this isn't about anything other than making sure I collect all of these individual little glowing stars in order to complete the level. There is no exit this time. It's just run around at the speed of sound, got places to go, you know, and collect all the little bits. Unfortunately, I believe I locked myself... Oh, no, I didn't. Not this one. Okay, there's one coming up in a bit where I lock myself out a few times by getting myself into an infinite loop that I can't escape. And that is definitely, you know, a bit of a challenge in some of these games is finding out where you can go. Like right here, I got myself stuck in an infinite loop. Right there. Right? I couldn't go anywhere without sacrificing my character. Or my little block. My Orbox, if you will. I wonder if that is actually what the Orbox is. So, let's go a little bit about the game here. Because I've been talking a little bit, and we're going to get and seeing a lot of these levels coming up and recycling. So, I did calculate up the levels, and there are 7 different level packs currently. They have plans to have more level packs introduced in the future, but right now there's 210 levels in total. And they love mixing it up a bit, so I didn't play through every single pack. I played through a lot of the, you know, a lot of the easier ones to get my first impressions and everything, because this isn't the review, this isn't the full review series on the channel, right? I'm still working on that Order 1886 review. By the way, it's just been, life has been super hectic with job searches and job interviews and whatnot, so it's really taken away my time to actually do in-depth reviews. So, yeah, it's my first impressions bit, so I didn't do any of, like, the larger, intricate stages, but I pulled down some screenshots that they gave so that you can see the kind of level design and beauty they put into some of these later levels when they get into some crazy designs. But, yeah, I mean, all you need is one hand, so the mechanics are really easy, and it's snappy. Like, when they add in the speed... the time trials, I'm just going to call them time trials. It's easier for me to remember time trials. When they add in the time trials later by using some of the blocks that come in later, I'll show you. You'll see. I'll bring that up when they come up again. But these are gates. I'm just going to take a little segue here and talk about the gates. When you pass through the gates, they actually form a solid block. So this is a new mechanic once again coming in right here. Before even 15 levels, we've got like 5 new mechanics we have to master. It's wonderful. It's great. But, yeah, the mechanics are very snappy. You can even see when I hit snap, do all this, even in the time trials, it becomes in very, very handy that these controls are super responsive. And I only ever had a few issues with the controls, but here's the kicker. The controls were not the game's fault. They were my fault. I was hitting too many buttons too quickly. And I think the game sort of gives you a little bit of leniency, because while you're on a travel path, if you hit left or right, let's say if you're traveling down, and you hit left or right, when you hit the next block, you will travel in the direction that you previously hit with your last input. That's what was happening to me for a few times in some of the speed missions, but that is completely my fault. I never had an actual issue with any of the controls in the game. Everything was snappy, no glitches happened whatsoever, so I can definitely say this game has that going for it. It's very smooth and satisfying to play. And, once again, these aren't scripted answers. Obviously, these are genuinely my impressions. I just want to make sure people get that, you know, understand that 100% that this is me talking about a fun little game. And one little detriment I will say to this kind of genre is that if it's not something that you really do enjoy, you're not going to be held into this game very long. But that's to say with every game, right? That's kind of a moot point, really, to bring up, because that is the same with every game. If you don't like God of War, you're not going to stick with God of War too much, right? But, you know, I heard God of War was really, really fantastic, and I've seen some people play it, so it's wonderful. But, yeah, this game, it definitely has a lot of new designs, and we have these grow blocks that just were introduced. And every time you pass through one, they will grow. You can stay on the block itself until you leave it, then it will grow. So it's more of a pass-through mechanic, rather than as soon as you reach the square, it will grow and push you out to the side. And here we go, we have a little bit of a mechanic where they want us to, you know, collect the stars and use the grow blocks. And you can see over on the side, you've got your mission progression, so the more you collect, you can kind of keep tabs on how much your mission progress is in a percentile bit. It definitely has a very good spacey sci-fi style, very, I don't want to say that it's extravagantly sci-fi, I want to say it's a very minimalistic sci-fi, which is something I kind of appreciate, because I feel like when people go through the fantasy genres or the sci-fi genres, they really do take it to themselves to make them extravagantly deep into that lore, but sometimes all you need is a little bit of flavor to it. So here's the bombs. The bombs start a countdown when you touch them, and this is where the speed missions come in, the time trials, because when you hit one of the bombs, it's integral to be able to go back and hit the bomb again in order to clear some of the missions. Now, you can hit it once and it will start the countdown, but if you double tap to the side when you're touching it, you can actually prematurely detonate the bomb. And that's where some of the mission depth comes in, because in some missions, you have to detonate certain bombs, like I'm doing here, in order to progress faster. And some, you only have to do that once or twice while keeping all the other ones alive, so that way you can easily make your way through the puzzles to solve it, to get to the gate, or to get the last stars you need to finish the game. Let's see now, they do boast that it's got around 10 hours of gameplay here. I'm just looking at a reference sheet as well from some of the stats they gave me, just to provide you guys with some in-depth information and to do the game a little bit more justice, because I did not play through the whole thing. They say 10 hours. I do believe that is very skill-based, so if you do enjoy the game, but you do get stuck on some puzzles, I believe I got stuck on a puzzle for 10 or 15 minutes, so if some of the harder missions get you stuck each for those, 10 hours can definitely go a little bit longer than that. So if you're looking for a game that's great to just sit down, play for a little bit, go through a few puzzles, like I call them like nighttime games. I used to do this a lot when I was in college. I would just go onto like a Flash website and pick up a nighttime game, which was essentially sometimes a lot just puzzle games to help me relax and just keep my mind fresh and go through just some classic puzzles. This type of puzzle game was 100% the kind of game I was always looking for. Something quick, easy, I can jump into, clear a few puzzles, and then go to bed. Right? So this game definitely falls into that category for me, and I hope that everyone sees that it also falls into that category as well. And if you're kind of that level of gamer where sometimes you just like to pick up a few things, you know, pick up a game for a little bit, play it a bit, but you don't necessarily want to play like something like Rocket League or Overwatch, because those are competitive and those will get your adrenaline up again. You definitely can go to this kind of thing where it will sort of, I don't want to say mentally exhaust you, but definitely tire you out in a mental way to kind of relax you a bit more, to get your brain not trailing, right? To get your brain off of that definitely heavy thinking pattern. Because when I was in college, I would do homework and sometimes my brain just would not stop thinking. And so these games are definitely a really good tool that I used to help me get off of that thinking pattern. And so here we've got a little bit of an extra flavor that they do. They'll arrange the blocks, the bomb blocks, in such a way that you have to be able to hit every single one or else it's game over. And there's definitely more intricate levels on the way, but these kinds of types of things were amazing to see. Just quick little missions that you can easily get in under 10 seconds. And then they brought in the sensor. Right after the bombs, you get the sensors. And now you have to hit every side of the sensor in order to clear it, right? Once again, there's no exit. It's not always about an exit. There are exits in many levels, but not all of them. So this is about managing your areas, being able to get around and hit every single corner, or every single side, I should say, not corner. Circles don't really have corners, but every single side of the ball in order to get it to light up. And this is where the first level that you'll see, where you actually have to pay attention to which side would benefit from being hit first, because I got locked out in that first attempt. I couldn't go anywhere without being eliminated. So you definitely have to make sure that you take your time to plan out which side needs to be hit. And sometimes, here's a thing that I didn't remember, backtracking is super important. Backtrack in this game a ton. Like, if you go over one angle and you get stopped, go back. Sometimes going back is better than going forward and doing another route, because you can't always do that. In a lot of missions, going back is your only option that you have. Whereas going forward isn't an option at all, because it will just end your run. I'm just gonna say I'm kind of a fan of the minimalistic art style. I mean, I know I said it earlier with the whole sci-fi being extravagant and stuff like that, but I think that sort of minimalism came a little bit with the Star Trek theme, right? Because Star Trek definitely had some extravagance, but a lot of their things were also simple. Like, a lot of their tools were simple as well, and not necessarily overly designed. And I think in a game like this, in a logic puzzle game like this, you have to keep the player invested on what's important on the screen. So you might be thinking, well, this looks kind of right? I don't want to say cheap, but yeah, it kind of looks cheap, right? That's how I would go. My first impression if I saw something like this would be, oh, it looks kind of cheap. Like, what is it? But that's actually good, right? And as an analytical standpoint, right, now that I take in games, since I like to review them now, before in my life I would definitely go with the whole cheap argument, but that's not valid. It's not valid, right? It's not valid with the gameplay and how the mechanics kind of come together, because the minimalistic style actually keeps your focus on everything that needs to be happening. You know, all the icons are down in the bottom right, so you can keep using them, but you don't need to click on them or anything. It's all in your one hand. You can use R to restart, space to skip ahead, so you never really need to take your eyes off the center area. And I think we're on the last level of easy here. Definitely a good one to show you how you get stuck in those infinite loops. Right here, I got stuck in the infinite loop, which meant I couldn't clear the mission. Right, you got to keep on top of that. Did I talk about the ice blocks yet, or are they new? They just came up. But if you can see, right, as on screen, you're seeing as soon as you touch them, as soon as you hit them once, they explode. They stop you, but they explode and get removed from the course. So it's definitely something you need to keep an eye on. And I made a bad move there. Got stuck in another infinite loop. The sound design also helps a lot with keeping this minimalistic style. I never felt like the music was hindering my ability to think. It's definitely simplistic enough and chill enough to kind of get you into that thinking vibe. So that's very, very good. I like the sound design. I like the musical choice for this game, because there definitely has been some games I've played that the music just... It takes your focus away. It takes you out of the experience, and that is something that you can't do. And there you go. You've got achievements, and you've got trading cards. So if those are some things you're looking for on Steam, go ahead, look at those up. You get this nice congratulations, you completed the easy pack. Unfortunately, you can't hit space to skip that screen. So, hey guys, if you're listening, maybe check that. Go back, check that. See if you can't reprogram the ability to hit space to skip off that screen. And now we're going into some of the average levels, which are going to be a little bit more of a test of your skill, and I think add in a few new blocks for you to have a challenge with. But yeah, if you guys can go back and maybe double check to see if you can't add in any space to skip that screen, so that way you don't have to reach over for your mouse, that'd be wonderful. That's, once again, just from my standpoint, I saw that. It's something I saw. It's not necessarily a bug. It's not really anything like that. It's just a quality of life thing. And it would have been nice if I didn't have to reach over, grab my mouse, and do that, just because it would have been nice to just get right back in there, get that, click it, or not even have to click it, but just press space and get into the next pack. Even if you actually add in an option there for space to continue the next pack, that'd be wonderful, just to keep the flow of the game going, right? Just an observation. Hopefully you agree. If disagree, doesn't matter. That's just a little note for you guys and everybody at home, because I know quality of life changes like that can make a difference in so many games. So many games I've seen that have just discredited some quality of life things like that. And I believe, you know what, this game and a few other games I've been playing lately, I've made some really good choices, because this game definitely has a lot of good quality of life decisions. The one-handed playing, being able to play it with just the WASD, R, and space, I'm going to bring that up again, because it is absolutely wonderful to just not have to worry about using more than one hand, not using clicking, right? Not using the mouse, not using your left hand and right hand in conjunction. So it really does keep more of your brain power activated. Because, believe it or not, the more that you actually get involved in while playing a game, the more it takes away from your logical thinking patterns, which is why some people don't necessarily read all the text on screen when they're playing video games. Haha, jab at myself. You know, or they'll miss stuff when they're playing the game. It's because the more they get engrossed in using the controls or remembering what button does what, it takes away their ability to think about what's happening on screen and digest all that information, because our brains can only process so much at a time. So that's just one wonderful thing. One of the biggest wonderful things that this game does for us as players is keep it all condensed to just one hand, right? Left-handed, right-handed, doesn't matter. You can keep it there. Simple, easy, and that's kind of what I look for in a puzzle game like this. To be honest, when I look for puzzle games like this, I look for not contrived, not too complex, something that doesn't have too much extravagance. I love simplicity, and in both visuals, concepts, and controls. Now, I don't want to say this game has simplicity in concepts, because it does do a lot to challenge a lot of different concepts, even within itself. Like right here, it's using the gates and the teleporters, and I'm starting to... Oh, and the angles, and I'm starting to wonder, like, which side do I go to first? Which area is the incorrect area to go? Right? And so I'm trying to wonder how each of these is working together. And here it was, right here. Remember how I told you sometimes you need to backtrack? That was the area right there where it kind of clicked that backtracking out of certain angles or certain portals is key to success. And here's another wonderful design. I think this is one of the first ones that they chose of this, is linking all of the portals. And this one does throw me for a bit of a loop. They get smart, guys. This game is smart. It will start getting smarter and smarter as you go along. Definitely the curve for challenge is kind of perfect. It really is. Because in some puzzle games, it's just not great. They'll just ramp up the difficulty on you. They'll add in a new mechanic and expect you to know how to deal with it because it's a little similar to something they added in previously 30 levels before. No, that doesn't happen here, right? It's all about how you recognize patterns, you know, taking your time to experiment, trial and error, that kind of thing, take different choices. And it definitely does. I never felt once like there was ever a puzzle that felt so hard it didn't belong in the pack I was playing. And that is another great point going for it. Just that the fact that it keeps its stride. Its pacing is wonderful. And I know you might be thinking, wait, game pacing? What's going on? What do you mean game pacing for a puzzle game? Yes, puzzle games do have game pacing. And I believe that they paid attention to that with this game. They definitely did. And here's a nice little fun troll they did. If you go up to find out what happens with all the portals, you'll just get infinitely stuck between those two portals. I thought that was a funny little troll. They definitely have a couple little trolls in this game that are a bit funny if you seek them out. And that's just a wonderful little bit. So I believe that there is only 5 different types of missions, and I believe we've seen them all, which is find a way to the exit, collect all the stars, which we're doing now, activate the sensors, which is one of the more difficult ones that does throw me for a loop, blow up all the bombs, which was one of the ones we also seen, and break all the ice. And that's it for all the different, like, game types, but the best thing they do to keep it fresh is, here's another infinite loop I got stuck in, by the way, but the best way they keep it fresh, which I think is a brilliant idea, much like Juanito Arcade Mayhem did with keeping the Arkanoid game fresh, was that they combined the objectives. Later on, you'll notice that some of the exits are locked off, and you can't exit just by going to that square. You have to complete all of the missions in it, and some of them are, you know, collect all the stars and hit all the sensors, then make your way to the exit. So they keep it fresh by adding in a little extra difficulty to it as well. They also kind of use the some of the blocks as artistic little bits, right? Because as you can see, there's grow blocks on the outside of this field when there doesn't really need to be because you don't interact with them. But they add a little bit of artistic flair to it. And you'll see in some of the screenshots later of some of the levels in the hard pack that they definitely knew what they were doing when they designed some of the levels in how to give it an artistic feel, but also keep it true to the puzzle game without, you know, sacrificing the logistics of the puzzle for looks. Because that is another thing that some puzzle games do, is they try and go for the extravagant looks and being like, oh, well, people will figure this out eventually, but then they don't realize that the puzzle is actually really, really hard because they tried to go for an artistic feel with it first over making a puzzle and then designing an art around it. So that's just something pretty cool as well. The game has a ton of different elements to it, and I had a good few hours with this. I really did. I had a good hour or two with this. I sat down and did it. I'm going to skip ahead here to show you some of the specific levels that I want to talk about. This was one of the levels that was giving me a huge bit of trouble because it's all about recognizing the pattern, the order of execution. Right there, I got myself into another back, up, and it's about clearing all the ice, but you have to know which ice to clear first before going to a new section, because you can't just roll around the outside or else you'll miss the entire inside. So I figured it out after about 10-15 minutes. This is one of the levels that took me about 10-15 minutes to actually accomplish. So here we go, we have another gate puzzle. I don't think I showed a bunch of these, but this is another order of operations kind of puzzle. They do like adding these in a bit later for some more effect, and I think that's awesome because it gets you to start getting your mind into what goes where first. When do I do this? Do I even incorporate using this type of hazard? Because sometimes you don't need to use the portals, right? You don't need to touch the portals. And sometimes you don't even need to touch most of the gates you have to go through. I've done certain puzzles without touching some of the gates. I've done other puzzles without going through a portal, right? Some of them are there to mislead you, to kind of get you to think a little bit more about an optimal path rather than including every single thing. And here I am just trying out a bunch of different moves, trying to find out how to get myself to that exit. Then they introduce labyrinths, and labyrinths are one of the few that I forgot to mention in the beginning of the video, because they came in late into my playthrough, and you know what? They are actually really great, because they stop you when you reach them like some other blocks do, but you then get to choose the direction depending on the opening of the labyrinth. So you definitely have to look at which each piece is telling you where it can go and how it goes, or else you could be jettisoning yourself out into space, or placing yourself in an area that might not be good. Right here, I'm even looking, okay, I have to go through the teal portal. Where will the teal portal land me? It will land me in the right block to it, which means I can go up and then left and then down and around. So that was definitely me going through a bunch of different areas, trying to figure out the logic of the puzzle. And if I knew if I went up here, I would be jettisoned out into space, so I went back to see if I couldn't do this maneuver, going left to hit a wall, and it did work. So that was just another little sort of subverting of expectations, because you figured, well, if I just stay in the same square as the teleporter, it'll probably just teleport me back. Wrong. I guess it only channels with movement, and not just being on the same space as the panel. I believe this was another mission where I did it without collecting... Oh no, this wasn't one of the ones where I did it without collecting all of the gates. It looked very similar. But I'm going to pause it again here. So I've skipped ahead again to one of these sensor puzzles. And once again, I was talking earlier about the sensors and how you have to... These ones are definitely based around planning out your moveset and knowing where you need to go and when, because you're not always going to have all of the movement options to your availability all the time. So I realized there that I should have went up first. The first move I should have made was up, because I can get every single other sensor on but that one in the end. So that's just another little level of depth, right? If you make the wrong move first, you can't solve the puzzle. You definitely have to go through trial and error, planning out your steps, just like every good logic puzzle should have. It should be able to challenge you quickly on the fly, as some of the speed levels do, that'll be showing in just a moment, and you know, challenging your perception as well, because sometimes you just need to take a step back, stop moving the little Orbox. I'm gonna keep calling it the little Orbox because I think that's a cute name. I do. And you literally just need to stop and look. Change your perception, maybe stop looking at your Orbox and where it can go, and start looking at the layout of the blocks that you need to hit. Because I definitely, in this mission specifically, I had to do that exact thing. I had to take myself away from the block, from the Orbox, and start looking at all the interactive blocks and how I could do this, because I started noticing that if I kept going down first, I could never get the right side of the sensor. So I said to myself, what is the best way? How do I get that sensor? How do I get that right side of that sensor? And it will eventually click to me on how exactly I will get that. It was almost exactly that, except when I reach that same square and I need to go down and then left or right, I actually have to go left to hit the sensor and not right through to close off the gap, thus locking me out of the sensor. Now, this was the last level of the average pack, and it definitely put my skills to the test. Average was starting to get a little hard, as it's the last level before you get into the hard pack. And it's got a sensor in the middle and all these portals, and you definitely need to manage your, not your angle, but your direction, and where you're going to next, because sometimes backtracking in this is not the way to go. Sometimes you need to definitely check your angles, you know, where you're going to go, if left or right is the viable option here. And I did pause quite a few times to calculate my track, because as I said just a few seconds ago, sometimes you need to stop looking at where the Orbox is and start looking where the paths will connect, start drawing lines, start seeing parallels, seeing, you know, like right there, I could have also went up as a valid option, but I didn't see that just yet. I think here is where I realize I can go up as a valid option, and that actually secures me the victory of the average pack. Right, the average level pack. And so it has this wonderful mix of using certain established mechanics in its game that have been established since the first few levels, which is great, by the way. I'm going to say it again. Having so many different level types thrown at you, not necessarily too quickly, but enough to give you a lot of variety is where you need to go with this kind of game. It was a beautiful step in the right direction. And here's where we start getting into these speed levels. And you might be saying, oh, these are the time trials that you were talking about earlier. Yes, these were the time trials I was talking about earlier. And you can see that once you hit the bomb, it'll start counting down from 9, and you only have 9 seconds to find your way through and figure out how you need to touch that bomb again in order to get yourself to the goal. Sometimes you actually have to touch it faster than you'd think. Sometimes you might be thinking, oh, I've only, if I have to get it closer to the 1 second because there's so many moves I need to do in this short amount of time. But sometimes actually you just need to hit it once, reposition yourself, hit it again at like 5 or 6 seconds, and then never touch it again. I think here was actually one of those puzzles. We'll see in a second, because there were definitely a few. I accidentally blew it up there. I wanted to see what would happen, to see if there was any viable options. There was not. There was not. But here we go. I think this is where I figured out the puzzle as how we have to go up and left. See, I had like 4 or 5 seconds left by the time I knew where I had to go. And so it's not always necessarily about being down to the wire. It's about learning the path. So here I learned that just going back in isn't going to get me anywhere. It's just going to jettison me out into space, and I'll have to restart. So this is when I figured, I'll have to go back through, see where the angles take me, right? Plan out where the teleporters are going to throw me to. And I feel like out of all of the matches that I played, or all of the stages that I played, the speed ones are kind of more my alley. But I feel like they added them in at the proper time in the game. I started getting good at learning what the angles do, what the bombs do, the timing and everything. So they definitely, once again, I'm going to mention the pacing of the game. They paced this out beautifully well. And so this one did give me a bit of trouble as well. As all puzzles do. I should really stop saying that all the puzzles give me a bit of trouble, because they all do. They're puzzles. They're meant to give you trouble. Jeez. But, yeah, this one did rack my brain a bit, and I just love the way it incorporates speed into puzzle solving. I love solving puzzles, and I love timed puzzles as well. I actually still own a full copy of the game Perfection, where you had to twist the dial and get all the pieces back into their specific holes before the timer ran out, or else it would spring up and launch them everywhere. Yeah, remember that frustrating game when you were a kid, because you didn't know your shapes very well? Yeah. And I think I just restarted it for some reason. I don't know why. I think I had it. I don't know why I restarted that. I had it. I think I even recognized that when I was doing that as well. I had that actual solved, and I hit R by reflex, for whatever reason. And normal was the next pack, not hard. Hard is the very end pack. But I wanted to do just 1 or 2 levels of normal just to show you how they started ramping up the difficulty a bit here. They're definitely taking in your problem-solving skills much harder here. There's no barriers around this way. The barriers are semi-permanent, right? So you can only hit them once or twice before they're all gone, and that's it, with the grow blocks blocking your path backwards. So basically, it just gets you committed. As promised, here are some of the screenshots that will show you what the harder levels look like with some of that artistic design for the hard and bonus levels. As you can see, we have a classic yin and yang design, with one side being filled in with grow blocks and the other not being filled in with grow blocks, leaving the empty void of the space that would create the yin and yang symbol for the light and the dark. And this puzzle, obviously, you have to clear all of the ice and use the portals in the center, but the problem is you got those grow blocks, so you're going to have to manage where you're going to go. I think that was one of the levels I am really excited to get to, but it's pretty deep into hard territory, though. That's going to be near the end of the game, if you're looking to see that one. We also have the bonus level 10 here, which I saw and was absolutely like, that is a ton of blank space. All those lines must be filled with stars. And how you're going to get them, I guess you're just going to have to find out and learn which angles to take and which blocks to grow and not grow until later on. Wow, that actually, I'm really excited. It's a little upsetting the teleporters don't come into play, though. I really like the teleporters. They add a little bit of flavor, a little bit of depth. And the final screenshot I have here is bonus level 12, which is a great capture of the Orbox in motion and just the gates coming together, being able to go through. So it looks like this is kind of like a point of no return. Once you go through those gates, you're not going to be able to go back, so you're going to have to make do with what you're going through with, or else you're not going to have a good time. You might not even have to go through these gates. It looks like possibly some of the options here might not lead to very good endings for you if you take them a little too soon. So that was just some of the harder level stages that you can unlock by playing through the packs and doing the speed runs, the time trial modes, and the average to hard difficulty packs. Just a lot of great things in this game to have. I felt here was a good time that I wanted to have. I mean, I think it shows you here, 3 minutes, 39 seconds is my total average speed for finishing that whole pack. 7 minutes, 24 seconds was my average, or was my speed for completing all of those missions, and 51 seconds, which is going to be really low because it's the speed, right? You only really have 10 seconds or a little bit more before that kind of mission is going to be incompletable. So that was just my bit of a journey with Orbox C, and once again, thank you very much, ProGamix, for sending me and reaching out to me for the code. I really did appreciate it. I actually really enjoyed your game. There wasn't much bad to say about it. The only real thing I have to say is that, I mean, I can't see a lot of people enjoying this for too long because it is the logic puzzle game. These are kind of like old Flash games that have been around for a while, so they might be a little tired and boring for a lot of people, but for me, it's right up my alley. I can see myself picking this up when I'm tired and just want a little something to play at the end of the day. And that'll be about it. If you guys would love to pick this game up, please go ahead, check it out on Steam for PC. And, oh, they have a little note here that says other platforms planned. This will be about $3.30 Canadian or $3 American, if that's, you know, with your regional equivalent and such. And so, I will see you all on another Random Wednesday here on What's This for another new game. Take care, everybody.